Nobody remembers the scoreline when they talk about the matches that changed everything. They remember the feeling. They remember where they were sitting, who they were watching with, what the moment meant. And I want you to hold on to that thought right now, because what happened on that grandstand court today, 6-love, 6-2, Karolína Muchová over Alexandra Eala, is a scoreline that looks one way on paper and tells a completely different story if you actually watched it. So before you let the numbers sink in and drag you somewhere dark, stay with me. Because this video isn't a eulogy. It's the opposite. It's the beginning of something. Let's be completely honest about what happened today, because Alex deserves honesty more than she deserves spin. Muchova was exceptional. There's no other way to say it. She walked onto that court with a tactical blueprint that was precise, cold, and executed almost without error. 5 break-point opportunities across the entire match. 5 conversions. 100%. Not 90. Not 95. Perfect. She won 80% of her first serve points. And then, as if that wasn't enough, she won 80% of her second serve points too. Think about what that means for a returner. It means you are standing on the baseline trying to create something out of nothing, every single time. Muchova changed pace with surgical timing, kept the ball low with her slice, and dictated the geometry of the court from the opening game. She never panicked. She never looked rattled by the crowd, by the occasion, by anything. That is what top 15 tennis looks like when it's working perfectly. That level of composure and execution deserves to be respected without qualification. But here's where the real conversation begins. Because when you look at Alex's numbers today, a 52% first serve landing rate, 36% of first serve points won, 0 breakpoint opportunities generated across the entire match, there is a version of this story where people look at those numbers and say she didn't belong on that court. And that version is completely, entirely wrong. Those numbers are not the story of a player who was outclassed in talent. They are the story of a player whose body had simply reached its biological limit. And to understand why that matters so much, you have to understand what Alex has actually been through over the last week, not just physically but in every possible way a human being can be tested. Every time Alex walks through that tunnel and onto a court, something happens that doesn't happen for most players on this tour. An entire nation wakes up. Literally. People in Manila setting alarms for 3 in the morning. Families crowding around phones and laptops in living rooms with the volume turned all the way up. Millions of people for whom this isn't just sport. It's identity, it's pride, it's something that feels personal in a way that is almost impossible to explain to someone on the outside looking in. That weight doesn't disappear when the match starts. It travels with her onto the court. It sits in her chest during every rally. It is there during every breakpoint, every tiebreak, every moment when the pressure peaks and everything inside her has to override the noise and just play tennis. Most veterans on this tour have spent years building emotional armor against that kind of pressure. They've learned to compartmentalize, to shut the outside world out, to narrow their entire universe down to the ball and the court. Alex is 20 years old and she is doing this in real time, in front of millions of people, at one of the biggest hardcourt events in the world. And she has been doing it every single match this tournament. Think about the Laura Siegemund match. 3 sets. Emotional swings, breakpoints, moments where the momentum shifted and she had to find something to pull it back. Then Magdalene, second set tiebreak, match points on the board against her, the kind of moment that finishes players who haven't developed that deeper layer of mental steel. She survived both. She advanced. But surviving takes something out of you. And tennis at this level is completely unforgiving about what fatigue does to your game. The biomechanics of tennis are so precise, so dependent on timing and explosive leg drive, that when your body is running low, everything degrades in a chain reaction. The first thing to go is the legs. Heavy legs mean your stance is slightly off on every single ball. Your contact point drops by a fraction. The explosive loading through the ground that generates the heavy topspin Alex normally produces. The kind of topspin that pushes opponents back into the bleachers, that was simply not there today the way it normally is. The ball was landing shorter. The depth that usually pins opponents behind their baseline was missing by just enough that Muchova could step inside the court and dictate instead of defend. And against a player of Muchova's quality, that margin, that tiny fractional margin, is the entire match. It is everything. She knew it too. You could see it in the way she was moving. Not dramatically, not in a way that would make casual headlines, but in the small things that people who watch tennis closely can read immediately. The explosive first step she usually has to wide balls wasn't quite there. She was arriving to balls a fraction late, having to reach rather than load up. And when you're reaching for balls against Muchova instead of setting up properly, you're not constructing points anymore. You're surviving them. Now here is the moment I need you to actually sit with. Because this is where the real story lives. The scoreboard read 6-love, 5-0 in the second set.
The match was gone.
Statistically, emotionally, in every conventional sense, it was over. Her legs were heavy.
Her lungs were burning.
The crowd, as passionate and loud as they were for her, couldn't give her back the physical energy she'd already spent. And in that moment, on an international stage, with the whole tennis world watching and the scoreboard looking as bad as it possibly could, Alex had a choice.
Not a tactical choice. A character choice.
She could have found a way off that court. A slight pull, a tight calf, a moment where calling the trainer would have been completely understandable and nobody would have blamed her for a single second.
She didn't. She stayed out there.
She competed for every single point. She refused to make it easy for Muchova, refused to let the score become the story of who she is. And she fought her way to 2 games in that second set when every biological signal in her body was screaming for rest.
2 games.
In the grand tournament picture, 2 games in a losing set changes nothing about the result. But they change everything about the character of the player who won them. And character is the foundation that every great career is built on. There's something specific about the Nadal Academy that shapes players in a way that goes beyond technical development. What they teach you there, what Rafa himself learned over years of brutal defeats and agonizing comebacks, is that losing a tennis match is not the worst thing that can happen to you. The worst thing is losing a tennis match and walking away without understanding what it was telling you. Rafa didn't become a 22-time Grand Slam champion because he won every match easily at 20 years old. He suffered. He lost in ways that were public and painful. And every single time, he went back to work and came back sharper, more complete, harder to beat. That process is exactly what Alex is in the middle of right now. Because Muchova didn't just win a match today. She handed over a detailed instruction manual. She showed Alex exactly what it feels like to face someone who varies the pace with perfect timing, who keeps the ball low and forces you to generate your own pace, who converts every single opportunity without hesitation and never gives you a rhythm to settle into. She showed her the exact standard of fitness required to sustain that level of performance deep into a tournament after the physical toll of multiple hard-fought matches. She showed her what she is working toward. And that is genuinely more valuable than any comfortable straight-set win over a lower-ranked opponent could ever be.
The clay season is coming.
And I want you to think about what that actually means for Alex's game specifically, because it matters enormously.
On clay, the ball slows down.
The higher bounce gives her more time to load up, to drive through the ball with that heavy topspin that is her most dangerous natural weapon. The left-handed angles she generates become even more problematic for opponents because the slide takes you wider, the recovery time is longer, and the kick can sit up in places that feel genuinely unplayable. On clay, Alex doesn't just have a chance, she is a legitimate serious threat to go deep at the biggest events. Roland Garros is where the Nadal Academy's philosophy lives. Red clay, physical endurance, mental toughness, constructing points with patience and executing with precision. That is the environment where everything she has been building accelerates. But she comes into that clay swing with something she didn't have before today. She comes in having felt exactly what it means to be physically depleted against a top 15 player and to still compete with dignity and fight. That experience lives in the body in a way that no training session can fully replicate. And next time she faces a week like this one, she will know what she needs to build, where the margins are, and how to protect her physical reserves for the matches that matter most.
The future is not just bright. It's specific.
The serve needs more kick, more variation in placement, enough threat that elite returners like Muchova have to think twice before stepping inside the baseline. The transition game, approaching the net with purpose, finishing points rather than grinding from the baseline indefinitely, that is the next layer being added. And the in-match adaptation, recognizing when a pattern is failing and changing it before the damage is done, that is the skill that separates good players from great ones. Alex is right on the edge of developing all of it. To every person watching this who has been part of following her journey, the ones who set the early alarms, who watched from the other side of the world, who painted their faces and waved the flag and felt every single point like it was personal, this is your moment too.
Not the celebratory kind. The harder kind.
The kind where you show what you're actually made of as a supporter. It is easy to be loud when the trophies are being raised. Anyone can do that. Real belief shows up on the difficult days. The days when the scoreboard is brutal and the emotions are heavy and it would be easier to just look away. Those are the days that define a fanbase just as much as they define a player.
So don't look away. Look closer.
See what actually happened out there today. A 20-year-old carrying an entire nation on her shoulders, running on empty, refusing to quit even when there was nothing left to give. That is not a defeat. That is a foundation. And foundations don't make for highlight reels. They make for careers. The road to wherever Alex is ultimately going runs directly through days like this one. And every great career you have ever admired, every player who eventually stood on the biggest court in the world holding the biggest trophy, walked through rooms like the one she's walking through right now. The best chapters are still ahead. I genuinely believe that. And if you've been watching closely enough, you do too.